We'd just completed dinner, cleaned up the dishes, and climbed into our sleeping bag when we heard a voice call through the night. "Captain! Captain!" It was almost completely dark. Only a faint glow of sunset showed on the horizon. We'd seen no other boats around, no buildings or signs of life on shore. That voice seemed like a bad spirit, but it couldn't be ignored. Since I was on the outside of the bunk, I climbed into the main cabin, wrapped a towel around my bare body, then climbed the first step of our companionway ladder. I was just in time to feel a dinghy laden with 4 white-robed Arabs crash into Seraffyn's side. 2 of the men held submachine guns high over their heads away from the spray thrown by their bucking 8-foot-long plastic dinghy. "Captain! Captain! Passport! Passport!" one of them called when he saw me. Larry was climbing out of the forepeak and rummaging around for his shorts and a sweatshirt. "What do we do?" I whispered. "I'm sure as hell not going to give them our passports," he muttered through his sweatshirt. "I'll go out and hold them away from Seraffyn's side. You make up a cruise list, make it look real official. Maybe that will satisfy them." I quickly put on some clothes, then got out 3 sheets of typing paper and printed our names and details from our passports and put a flourishing signature across all 3 copies of our made-up cruise list. Then I put a stick-on return address label in the corner, and to impress our very unofficial-looking visitors, I pasted half a dozen Italian and Maltese postage stamps on the top copy. I carried this out into the whipping wind along with our passports. There was just enough light between the last rays of sunset and our anchor light for me to show the 4 Arabs our passports, then point to the identical names and numbers on the paper. From the way they looked at those faked-up cruise lists, we could tell none of them knew how to read English, but the leader was satisfied. He folded the papers carefully and tucked them away inside his billowing robe. "Cigarette, cigarette," he asked in a pleading voice. We indicated we had none, and Larry started saying, "Salome, Salome," which we learned as Arabic for goodbye. We both sighed with relief as 4 hands let go of our bulwarks, and the 2 men, without bulky guns, started paddling furiously toward the mile-distant shore. Our relief quickly turned to concern. Those poor men in their bobbing, jumping, square-fronted plastic boat couldn't make a bit of headway against a wind that was now blowing over 40 knots. If they didn't get some help, they'd be blown onto the reefs 4 miles to leeward out in the Red Sea. Larry hesitated only a second. He grabbed the main sheet, which was hanging on the boom gallows, coiled it carefully, and tossed. 1 Arab grabbed that line as if it were a blessing from Allah. He almost lost his 4-foot-long paddle in the process, but somehow he managed to secure our main sheet around the bow eye on his dinghy, and there we were, darkness all around us, a rising gale, and a dinghy full of gun-toting Egyptians tethered behind us. For a few minutes, everything seemed under control. I just had time to get a jacket out. Then the Arabs pulled alongside Seraffyn. "Motor, motor," the headman said, pointing at Seraffyn's stern and indicating with hand signals that he wanted us to tow him closer to shore. I got out our big flashlight to show him there was no propeller under Seraffyn's stern, no outboard motor for our dinghy. The true situation began to dawn on those 4 men, who we'd now concluded were Army guards camped somewhere on the sandy island with orders to check each boat that came into anchor. The headman showed us the water collecting in his overloaded dinghy, and I got out a bread pan to work as a bailer for the frightened quartet. They again trailed aft, bailing all the time. It was only minutes later that a fishboat came steaming slowly around the end of the island. Her crew got ready to let out an anchor maybe a quarter-mile past us. Larry started signaling at them with our quarter-mile flashlight, and then one of our unwanted guests frightened the hell out of us. He aimed his submachine gun and let off a blast of bullets right at that fishboat. Long tongues of flame split the night as bullets flew from that heavy gun to just clear the running lights of the only possible rescue boat. Motors revved up, the fishboat skipper turned off its lights and chugged back out to sea. I sure didn't blame them. Up until that moment, the Arabs had been just a nuisance, but after that round of gunfire, we were scared. Only the fear that they'd turn their guns on us kept Larry from casting them off to get blown down the Red Sea.